My name is Mona, and I'm a grateful recovering compulsive overeater and thrilled to be here. Unlike you guys, I weigh and measure 3 meals a day off the GreySheet. I committed to my sponsor. I don't eat no matter what. And abstinence is the most important thing in my life. And I'm abstinent by the grace of God in this community. And you know, the mishap that happened today with 12:30 meeting or 1:30 meeting is just an example of life, you know. Things get in the way, and what are you committed to? It all works out because we have a higher force, because we don't eat no matter what. And I can just tell you that GreySheet was not on my bucket list at all. I was in Overeaters Anonymous in 1974. I ate my whole life. I'm not going to go into a whole foodalog, but at a very early age, I turned to food. In the first grade, the most important subject was snack time. When I was a teacher, the 6th graders had snack time. Nobody in the 6th grade had snack time. My kids had snack time. I taught reading with food because they would read what to do in a recipe, but then they wouldn't eat it. And I didn't understand, I remember I said, Pedro, ¿cómo está? And he'd go, too sweet, Miss Hollander, too sweet. Hablo español un poco, pero not enough for here. Anyhow, food, my father was a rageaholic. He was wonderful. He loved the family, but you never knew when he came in if he would be screaming, throwing dishes, never at us. He never hit my mother or anything. He loved my mother, but there was a lot of turmoil. And food, which I learned in therapy, really was my friend because it warded off everything that was going on. But then it turned into an addiction. And I was popular, but never felt popular. Very low self-esteem. I don't know why. I was the oldest in the family. Everybody thought I was Miss Special, but inside I didn't feel worthy. Senior year in high school, I convinced my mother to take me to my first diet doctor. I don't come from 300, 400 pounds. I come from up 20, down 20, up 15, down 15. But I have this disease, trust me. I later learned that's anorexia because I always felt fat. To this day, I still, feel fat, and I'm not because I have a stomach. I'm lucky I have a stomach. I was run over 12 years ago and almost died. But I'll go into that later with the story in relation to GreySheet. So anyhow, when my friends were all talking about boys they would go out with, they were interested in, flirting, blah, blah, blah. Food was more important to me. It was like I couldn't wait. And I didn't know there was anything wrong. As I got older, I was into teaching 15 years, and then I left and got into the garment center. But my friends would see what would happen is we go out. I was really excited about eating, and I'd be right in the conversation. But toward the end, my eyes would become like this because I was thinking. I was very good. Like, I see Catherine there. I would be talking to you, Catherine, if we were out for dinner, and I'd say, that green looks really well on you. And in my head, it would be, should I have that? Maybe I shouldn't have that. Don't touch that, Mona. Oh, you touch it. Don't worry about it. Have it. Tomorrow you'll have something light. No, Mona, don't do that. Do it. Really, I really like that. Where did you get it? I mean, I knew how to have multiple conversations, but I wasn't really present, My friend saw me, what was happening. And one day she called me in 1970 and she said, Mona, we laugh and you think you're Peter Pan and you're going to live forever. But we open your kitchen cabinets and we see red pills, yellow pills, green pills, where there should be condiments. You're going to die. And I thought, oh, yeah, right, please. She told me about this program called Overeaters Anonymous. That was like Alcoholics Anonymous, only instead of alcohol, it's with the food. I finally said, I'll go to one meeting and I'll see what it's like. I went. I thought they were crazy. They was doing this prayer. They said they're powerless. My therapist taught me I had the power. Just keep trying. You'll make it. Therapy, by the way, was all about the food. I ate again. Oh, my God. It was never about issues because my issue was I couldn't stop eating. I left Overeaters Anonymous. I didn't stay. And you know what they say, it gets worse. And 4 years later, I couldn't stand it anymore. And I did get into OA. I'm not going to get into how I got into it. And at the beginning, it was great because I had people like yourselves that had a problem. They understood me. I learned this is about a disease. It's not about willpower. I stayed in Overeaters Anonymous for 17 years. But 5 years of that, I started going to GreySheet meetings because it wasn't working. OA, and again, I'm not bashing it, but for me, what started happening is, it's okay, Mona, you picked up a little. It's okay compared to what? You're thin. Thin is not well, by the way, everybody. And it was just excuses. I had a sponsor, I would say what was going on at work, and they'd agree with me. It is awful when people do that. That's not what we do in GreySheet. I started seeing the difference at meetings in GreySheet as opposed to OA. There was a clarity. There was a light. People were losing parents and they didn't eat no matter what. They were having babies, they didn't eat no matter what. They were getting divorced, they didn't eat no matter what. The most horrible things could be happening and they didn't eat no matter what. It was such a strong message. I started going to AA meetings, and one day I realized there's nobody in AA that led a meeting and said, I had a little scotch, a little beer and no scotch. They either were drunk or they were sober. There was no middle of the line. And it was like, wow, that's like GreySheet. But I didn't think I was as bad as them. And I loved them. They were always welcoming me, but I didn't think I needed the scale. What I really started to see in my 4th year of visiting GreySheet was I was starting to notice there were issues that I was afraid to face. How do I not eat when the boss yells and I'm afraid of being fired and I turn to food? When I'm scared with a man, how do I deal with that without going to alcohol? I started seeing other stuff. And then I had one of my worst binges, and I was coming home on a Friday night, February 22nd, 1991. And I was going to an AA meeting because I thought, I need the steps. I really need the steps. And they have a good step meeting. But I passed 63rd Street where that meeting was, and I ended up at 74th Street at a GreySheet meeting. I was not going to a GreySheet meeting. I was going to an AA meeting. That's why you got to believe me, there is a higher force, because that person up there, that man with the gray hair, was leading my feet to GreySheet. And it was the first time I hated the meeting. I thought these people were crazy. The person that was going to speak was chewing so much gum, I thought her teeth would come out. I thought they were all having heart attacks with this Chinese food they were ordering after the meeting. There was a Chinese restaurant everybody went to, and they'd have these bricks, and I thought they're going to die. Meanwhile, I was doing everything that was unhealthy in my life. And somebody next to me from Overeaters Anonymous said, Mona, if you want, I'll sponsor you. You'll do GreySheet at home, but not in restaurants. I figured I beat the system. And then the qualifier spoke. And it was my story. The red pills, the green pills, the yellow pills, the water pills, the X-Lax, the colonics that I was taking, the 2 bars of chocolate X-Lax that I froze in the refrigerator. I just heard my story. And then somebody in GreySheet, who I love to this day, came over to me. Now, they never said, Mona, you should be doing GreySheet. I was the one that said, I love your program, but I just don't think I need that strict. And she said to me, how you doing? And I said, actually, I'm doing great. Blah, blah said she'd sponsor me, doing GreySheet at home, but not in restaurants. And she turned to me and she said, you've been visiting us long enough. If you really want what we have, you have to do what we do. I started shaking, everybody. I really was. I think somehow my body and mind knew the jig was up. I was so scared. And she pulled over the speaker to sponsor me. And that night, she sponsored me just overnight, which I didn't know at the time, because she only had 90 days and she didn't feel confident enough to sponsor me. I committed 2 cups of, 1 cup of, and 2 clucks, I call them, because we can't mention food, and 3 tablespoons of fat, which I thought, of course, I would end up as a house the next day. And when I finished my dinner, my first GreySheet dinner, I noticed there was no noise in my head. Nothing that said, open the refrigerator, don't open the refrigerator. I have a little more, have a little less. You know what? Don't finish. There was nothing. It was quiet. I'm single. I couldn't believe it. It was like my friends used to say, there's so much noise in your head. No wonder you're not married. Have so much company up there, you know? There was quiet. What a relief. I went to the GreySheet meeting the next day. I got a permanent sponsor. And I can tell you that February 23rd, I celebrated 32 years of GreySheet abstinence. So moving on, this is somebody who never wanted to do this. My sponsor was genius. First of all, she was younger than me, much younger than me. I'm 81 years old. I feel like I'm 16, but I am 81. And I think that's GreySheet. It's a whole transformation of my mind, of my mindset, of what I look like, who I am. She said to me, we're not dealing with any issues at all. First, you've been in recovery for 17 years, no sponsoring. She says, what's for dinner? What's for breakfast? What's for dinner? What's for lunch, rather? What's for dinner? I want specifics, no generic. You call 3 people a day. I don't care how you do it. You figure it out. 90 meetings in 90 days. Raise your hand at every meeting, whether you want to or not, because people get to know you that way and you become part of the community. I followed everything this person said because I was at my bottom. I was at my bottom. If I didn't want to go to work one day, I'd call her and say, I'm just so tired. I just can't do it. And she'd say, your job is to be abstinent. You get to work, you eat your weighed and measured lunch, you get to your meetings, and you share, everything that she told me to do, and then you go to sleep. Sometimes she'd tell me, stay home. Whatever she said, I did. I worked with her for 3 years. She really believed in the foundation, which is how I sponsor. Get the foundation. You'll have plenty of time to work on your issues, and you don't have to look for your issues. Trust me, they'll come up. I then changed sponsors, not because I hated her. I just needed a different kind of sponsoring. And I've been with my sponsor now for 27, 28, 29, 30, 30 about 25, no, 28 years, something like that. Whatever it is, 30, 32, 30, what am I'm so mixed up. 31 minus 5, whatever. That's how long I've been with him. And he was what I really needed, I needed the spiritual part of the program, the step part of the program. For me, along with the steps, which to me gave me more spirituality, I really cleaned up my life in therapy because finally I had a therapist that didn't deal with food. I dealt with what I was afraid of. I dealt with my anger. I dealt with my issues. I dealt with, my first 90 days, I went to New Orleans with my best friends, one of whom was the one that introduced me to Overeaters Anonymous. We went to New Orleans. I asked my sponsor if I could go. She said, as long as you don't eat, no matter what, you go. I went to New Orleans, and I had never eaten out before out of New York. It was a 5-star restaurant. Oh, I hate 5-star restaurants. Don't go to 5-star restaurants. And I ordered my food, and the salad came, very pretty. Who needs pretty? I need volume, And it was like, a little thing here, a little thing there. It was like, oh my God. I had to order 8 salads in this 5-star place. Could imagine the price. But my friend said, at this point, she said, can't you lighten up, at least when we're away on vacation? And let me tell you guys, this was my closest friend who saw me binging the city, And I froze and I said, Mona, this is the opportunity. You're either going to vote for yourself or vote for your friends. And I didn't answer her. And I continued to weigh and measure my food. We didn't speak that evening. And then my other friend said, can't you guys straighten this out when we get back to New York, which we did. And I learned that Shell's father always got deathly ill around the table. So for her, she couldn't have any chaos, and what I was doing was chaotic. It was, it was weird, cupping 3, So we made a decision to go out to events, not to go out to dinners. And that was great for a year. We went to museums, we went to plays, we went to movies, we took walks, we did other things. after a year, you're kind of credible already. It's like, this is not a fancy passing diet. And we did everything, 5-star, schmai, whatever, we traveled together. I travel in GreySheet. I haven't with the pandemic, but it's very possible. I usually go with a travel group, and I tell them right off the bat, when we introduce ourselves, I'm in a 12-step program. People in the world basically don't know GreySheet. So I say it's like AA, only it's with the food. I said, what I do, each meal, you'll see this scale. It'll be on there. I'll be weighing and measuring the food. I'm not taking your food. I just need certain amounts. And outside of that, I'm pretty much fun and, kind of normal in other areas. And they laugh. And I have always met people that support me, always. And people open up about their lives because I guess I'm so vulnerable. I open up and I don't have to think about it. In restaurants, I went from, what are you looking at, to, I'm in a 12-step program, and just this is what I do to stay sane. I have no qualms about it because nobody, and I know you guys feel that way, nobody goes to bed with your head. I would binge at a wedding. Oh my God. And my sister would be overeating and whatever. Trust me, they went to bed peacefully. After that binge at night, I'm like, why did I do that? Oh my God, how much should I, on and on. I could go on with a million stories. I mean, 32 years is a lot of years, or 31. I forgot what I have already. I could actually look at my coin. I have 32 years. It is so worth it. That's all I can tell you. I am in retirement now. I dealt with my parents, passing. I actually guided my father across, and this is a person who was afraid of death. I've lost jobs. My dog died. I had the gift of being with him all these years and tell you stories forever. I'm going to end because I really want to hear from you guys, even if I don't understand what you're saying. Oh my God. I don't know how this kind of works, Marcella, but it has been an absolute gift to serve you, so to speak, because we're all in this together, and we all are about weighing and measuring no matter what, and then working the rest of the program. But the basic thing is not to eat. So with that, I'm going to close and say thank you for giving me this opportunity.